Welcome everybody, thanks for joining us this evening for this Partners and Families Transition webinar where we hope to share a little bit more information about what Rugby League does in terms of helping players prepare for life after rugby and the support available in transition. I'm recording the session so that we can share it with other people. We can get this message to as many partners and families as we can. If you have any questions today at any point, please feel free to jump in. Put your hand up, knock yourself off mute, ask away because it's probably relevant to the section we're on. I'll do my best to answer the question. If I can't, I'll come back to you either at the end of the session or at another point. Equally, we've got a chat box, so if you've got any questions you want to ask but you don't want to shout out while I'm talking, stick it in the chat and Laura and Lottie will look out for that and let me know, and we might pick up on those questions at the end because we've got a section for questions at the end. Okay, I think that's all the housekeeping I needed to do. We'll jump straight in. There we go. Okay, quick introduction. So my name is Stephenson. I'm the Transition Manager of Rugby League Cares. It's my responsibility to look after all the full-time clubs and championship clubs to ensure all our athletes are aware of all the support and provision and the services available to them in transition. And part of that is communicating that information to you guys this evening. I'd like to give Lottie the opportunity to introduce herself for me.
Hi guys, I know some of you on the call will know me, some of you don't. So my name's Lottie. I am partner of Brett Delaney. Me and Brett, we'll get into our story in a bit. We've been on a roller coaster around 10 years now. I was sort of with him for, I would say 4 or 5 years throughout his time at Rhinos, and then really have ridden that journey sort of out of rugby through the transitional years, and he is now a player turned coach. So yes, I'll hand over to Laura. We're obviously both founders of Beyond the Sidelines, and we're really excited to be here tonight.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura Hanson. I am married to Chris Hanson. Although my personal background is rugby league, he is actually, rightly or wrongly, a golfer. So I've lived the roller coaster life within the professional world of sport, golf. So yeah, as Lottie said, we'll share our stories a bit later on. A lot of our life is very similar to some of the things that we're sort of hearing within rugby league, but being an individual sport as well, it does bring its own challenges too. So thank you.
Thanks, Lottie and Laura. We'll be hearing more from you two later on. Okay, so a quick agenda framework for this evening so you know what's coming up. We've done the introductions, we're already through the first section. We're going to do a little bit on the why we have a transition program, why we have a player welfare program, why we encourage our athletes to now prepare for life after sport. What we do, you know, what do we provide, what's involved, what benefits and services and support can they access, who's important in that. We're going to hear a couple of partner stories towards the end. A section on how you can help and how we'd like you to help and how you can get involved, and also ample opportunity to ask any questions at the end. If you do have any questions, please write them down or ask them at the point. Please ask, you know, if you're thinking it, somebody else is probably thinking it as well, so get it out there and I'll do my best to answer it. Okay, so why do we have a transition program? Why are we so invested in that now as a sport? And it's not just us, it's other professional sports as well. I think we've all realised in the last 10 to 15 years that we have a duty of care to ensure our athletes are prepared as best they possibly can be for whatever their lives look like after they finish playing professional sport. I know this from the conversations I've had with over 400 former professional rugby players. Other sports know the same for the conversations they have when we talk to each other. Academic research has proved that there can be a significant period of ill health and ill mental health if there isn't a preparation and a planning phase for retirement. And lots of other former professional athletes have spoken out about their challenges and the struggles that they've been through. And you only have to put a search online about professional sports and transition, and there's hundreds of stories out there. I'm going to use some evidence and some facts that we've got to try and paint a picture of that for you now. So there was a player survey done across all professional sports, and there were a couple of mental health statistics that came out of that I think are important to share. More than half of all professional sports people have had concerns about their emotional or mental well-being since they finished playing. That's it's a shocking number when you think about it. But what it does do, it points out that not that it's normal, but it's an accepted journey they have to go through as part of their transition. And then the second one, rugby union, almost 50% have financial difficulty in the first 5 years, and 62% of retired players have experienced some sort of mental health issue. So again, you know, there is evidence, quite clear evidence now that it can be a challenge mentally for athletes to retire. Something on financial and emotional health: 3 out of 5 Premier League players declare bankruptcy within 5 years of retirement, and 33% end up divorced within 1 year of leaving the game. And an important one in terms of choice and timing: only 3 former players are able to choose when they stop playing professional sport. And we're going to come on to that a little bit later on, why that's important. As much as we all like to think, and I was the same, that we will retire at a grand final or a Challenge Cup or a Test series, we've got a trophy in his hands and it's a great swan song and we can wave to his family and move on. Only 30% of athletes get to make that choice. Ultimately, the sport will retire players for a variety of reasons, whether that's injury, form, a coach doesn't decide you're good enough anymore, you fall out with a chairman. There are a variety of reasons why you don't always get to choose when you retire. So Professor David Lavalle is the foremost expert in terms of academic research on professional sports transitions. He's done over 100 studies in this area. And there's a couple of statements of his that I'd like to share that, again, draw some important conclusions for us. A career-first approach: the more people focus and develop a strong identity in what they are doing, the more likely they are to perform, which is good. We want our athletes to perform at their peak. We want them to be the best possible rugby league players they can be for their clubs and their international teams. However, this also presents a potential risk later on. It's a Faustian bargain that athletes often make to fulfill their dreams. So they sacrifice areas of their life and they sacrifice the development of their personality because they need to focus on becoming the best rugby league player they can be. And I understand that, having lived it and dreamed it and done the same and made the same bargain with myself and told myself the same convenient lie. And it's not a conscious lie, it's unconscious, but you think you've got to dedicate your life to being the best player you can be. But at the same time, you sacrifice other areas of your life, which can come back and bite you if you don't prepare for it. I'm going to touch on that a bit later on as well. And then there's an attachment element to it. Retirement is the only inevitability in sport and represents a loss of somebody's resources, personal, material, but perhaps the hardest of all, the symbolic resources. Many athletes have an emotional attachment tied into what they do. And again, it is a strong emotional attachment to being a rugby league player or a footballer or a rugby union player. And it's that attachment it is even harder to let go of if they don't have a broader identity. And again, we're going to touch on that in a moment. David Lavalle pops up a few times later on. If you want any more information about his research and his work, do a search online, and I'm going to share some links later on the chat. So again, this is another one of his statements. Individuals with a high athletic identity at the time of retirement were more likely to experience a higher degree of emotional adjustment difficulties. So this term, athletic identity, is something we're going to use quite a bit. And I just wanted to probably help define it a little bit. Athletic identity, it's where the player identifies as being an athlete in its simplest term, and they focus all their energies, all their resources, all their dedication to being the best possible athlete they can be. But they don't. By doing that and eliminating other areas of their life and other areas of their personality and the development of that personality, it creates these challenges later on when that athletic identity is removed. So once they stop playing, and the thing that defined them and the thing that they were known for and the thing that other people defined them by is gone, there is a big hole. And that is probably the largest source of the emotional challenge that athletes and players, professional sportsmen, can encounter during transition. So it's the athletic identity. So what we do, and we're going to touch on the what later on, but the player welfare managers and the clubs and ourselves at Rugby League Cares, we encourage players to develop other aspects of their lives. We encourage them to develop their identities that come through with hobbies and passions, travel, reading, educating themselves in a totally different area that's not sport related, planning for life after rugby, working on their relationships, broadening their network and their friendship groups and friendship groups that are outside of rugby league are all good things to do to eliminate that possibility of having such a narrow identity that they're only defined as a sportsman. The reason I say that is some of the work I do is with longer retired athletes, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And those guys who still haven't transitioned successfully are those who only had an athletic identity at retirement, and they still haven't been able to replace that. And they still find it challenging to this day, even though they've been retired 25 years. So at the end, at the point of retirement, this is a really useful diagram. It's called the Kubler-Ross change curve. I apologize for the long title, but it quite succinctly shows the wave of emotions that players go through and the drop and the post-career blues or post-career depressions that it's described as. So the first column, you got the denial. Like I said, 70% of athletes don't retire on their own terms. So there's an element of denial. And then there's this period that they drop into a period of low mood, which I need to explain again is normal. Most athletes experience that. It would be unusual if they don't. They drop down. They take some time to come to terms with the fact that they're no longer an athlete, and then they have to find a new passion and a new reason to get up in the morning, something to get excited about that they can devote their energies to. And it goes through frustration. It goes into depression. At that point of depression, you know, and again, every athlete's different, every transition is different. It mentions anger and fear. And some of the conversations I have with athletes around this time is a bit of isolation because might be 6 months after they've finished playing. They've not had much contact with anybody in the sport since then. You know, you're very quickly forgotten, rightly or wrongly. And next year's generation and next year's players are coming through. And they feel isolated, they feel abandoned, and there's a bit of resentment and bitterness in there as well, and anger and fear. Then through the work that we do, we encourage them then to look at what's next, explore their opportunities and start rebuilding and working towards whatever the second chapter of their lives is going to be. You know, champion rugby players, they can be champion in anything else they wish to do, and they've got some great skills, some great transferable skills, some really good qualities as people that they develop as rugby players that they can apply to lots of other areas of their life, and any other career would are crying out for those skills: dedication, hard work, teamwork, leadership, you know, resilience, all the things that we talk about with rugby players. Transitions vary. Somebody might leave tomorrow and be perfectly content and happy, and they're happy to do whatever they want to do next: accountant, builder, train driver, whatever it is they choose to do. They may be content with that, you know. But from evidence and from studies, the majority of people will see this change curve. They'll go into a period of low mood and then start coming out of it. It's a wave. It will pass. Ride the wave. Work on the programs that we've got, and they will get there. With the sport, friends, and family, and professionals. So that kind of summarises the fact that the depth of the low mood, the direction, and also the duration are all variable depending on the individual, and there are lots of variables to that. So I'm going to repeat one of the statements I said earlier. This is the convenient statement, and I use the word lie. It feels a bit harsh saying lie, because it's not done intentionally. It's done with the best will in the world. It's a belief more than a lie. I just need to focus on my rugby right now. I can't afford any distractions that might hinder me from succeeding in achieving my goals. This is the number one objection stroke belief that we hear from all professional players in terms of thinking about their life after rugby, from 18-year-old up to 32. You know, everyone wants to delay it by a couple of years because they've got a couple more years in them. And I believe the same. You know, I'm probably poacher term gamekeeper. I absolutely believed the same and did the same, and avoided thinking about life after rugby because I needed to dedicate my life to being a rugby player, because I needed to achieve my goals. And that was important to me, and I thought that was the right way to approach it. I think probably at the time the sport thought it was the right way to approach it as well. What we know now is it's not actually true. It's not. There's no evidence to support that. In fact, the evidence is contrary to that. If you're an athlete and you do spend time planning for your life after rugby, your career engaged, you've got a broad personality, you've got a wide range of interests and a broad network of friends and family and circles that you move in, you've got a much better chance of spending more time playing rugby league, more time at one club, and more minutes on the field. So the exact opposite is true. And this was proven by David Lavelli. Again, he did a study on the National Rugby League in Australia. I'm not going to go through all this. I just wanted to share it. I'm going to put a link to this on the chat box so you can look at it in your own time. It's a summary of his research, and there's a full paper that supports this. But again, I'm going to repeat it. It just says, if you're engaged in career planning, you will spend more time playing rugby league, you'll have a longer career, you'll have more time at one club, and you'll spend more minutes on the field. It's just, you know, it's a no-brainer. And this is the evidence we're now using with players to challenge their beliefs that they can't, I haven't got time to think about it yet. Well, actually, if you do, you'll be a better player. You'll have a better contract. You'll enjoy more time on the field. So some adjustment factors that we look out for, some that we share with players, and I'm sharing with you guys this evening because you're an important part of their network. The top three are the ones that I've highlighted and we've touched on a little bit, but athletic identity, the narrower your identity, the more difficult you will find transition. If you can broaden your identity through a variety of means I've already covered, you have a much better chance of navigating that period quicker, more successfully, and flourishing in life after rugby. Financial planning is a really important one. I know we mentioned a few stats from the Premier League and Rugby Union before, but I see this, having spoken, you know, dealing with the retired and the retiring players, it's a bit of a financial shock at the end. You know, we can earn elevated money above the national average for a short period of time, but we all know it's not life-changing money. We all wish it was, and hopefully in the future it would be, but it's not enough to, you know, sustain a retirement from 33 years onwards. So Chris Alinsky spoke at an event earlier this year, and he advised everybody, and it was an event for young players, save your money, get some financial advice and invest for the future, because once that money's gone, you know, it's a shock, and planning for it properly, again, is another key marker about how successfully they'll transition. Future career planning, again, same story. I think I've beaten that drum enough. Four, not less important, they're all important, but four that I wanted to touch on as well is from an athlete's point of view, an individual player's point of view, their awareness of what transition looks like is important. You know, if they are aware of everything I'm telling you this evening, and they know what's coming, and they accept it's going to be difficult, and they accept it's going to be different, and life's going to be different. Again, it might reduce the depth of that curve and the time it takes them to get out the other side. So awareness and acceptance is an important one for the players. If they've got positive, healthy coping skills, and this will be things that the player welfare managers will be working with them at their clubs in order to manage stress and pressure and difficult times. And the two last ones are around the athlete themselves. If they achieve their goals and they feel that they tick the boxes that they wanted to tick while playing, they have a better chance of transitioning. If they didn't achieve their goals or didn't achieve all their goals, it will become more difficult. My goal was to play the Challenge Cup final. As a young kid signing first professional team, I wanted to play a Challenge Cup. That was my goal. In the end, I never got anywhere near. I think quarterfinals was the closest I ever get. So it's a big disappointment for me. And it was certainly when I knew I had to retire and I was never going to get to play at Wembley. That was a disappointment. So I understand that one in terms of achievements. And the last one is whether you get to choose to retire or not. Remember, we said earlier, 30% of professional athletes don't get to, only 30% of professional athletes get to choose when they retire. So those athletes who retire on their own terms, again, it's less of a challenging transition. Those athletes who retire early, prematurely through injury, form, not being selected, not being traded, again, it's more of a challenge. So there's some good markers there that we can look out for, and athletes themselves can look out for a modifying change and work towards in order to make transition an easier process. So that's the why. So that's some of the evidence and some of the stuff I've seen, other sports have seen, and the studies that have been done. So what do we do about it? You know, what are we doing to mitigate this? There's a significant investment in player wellbeing, both during and post-career. So we've got programs in place now to address everything that I've just spoke about. So this is a whistle-stop tour. So this is not a comprehensive rundown of what's available in terms of wellbeing at individual clubs, but I will just give you some bits just so you get a flavour of what's going on. But during the career, it's proactive, it's planned and preventative. So everything's done in a positive fashion to try and eliminate the stuff we just talked about. Rookie camp, that was the event I spoke about that Chris Alinsky spoke at. So this year, for the first year in about 10 years, we took the initiative to start rookie camp again. What's rookie camp? It's first year and second year professional players are all brought together from all professional clubs, and we start talking about this stuff. We start talking about well-being, we start talking about career planning, we start talking about identity, we start talking about the things they need to think about. Even though they've only been signed on for 2 or 3 months, we want them to get into this narrative, into this way of thinking, and educate them based on those lies and those beliefs that they've got, that actually investing in your future means you've got a better chance of playing rugby for a longer term anyway. So that's what rookie camp is. So we're starting to get this in really early. The earlier down the stream we get it, the less challenges we have at the end. Every club's got a player welfare manager, and I've underlined this and put a plus next to it. The player welfare managers are the first port of call for all players at clubs. They do a fantastic job. They work really hard on behalf of the players, and they're there to answer any questions or provide any support, advice or guidance to professional players in terms of their well-being during being a player, but also their career planning. And that's part that they deliver the player welfare programme on behalf of Rugby League Cares and the Rugby Football League. Players can access legal, financial and career advice at any time while they're playing. We've got legal partners, financial partners, and access to a network of careers advisors across the UK that any player can access without any cost. Clubs will also support this. There'll be legal advice and financial advice at your clubs. I've no doubt about that. You'll already have partners who want to support your players during and post-career. Take advantage of it, but they can always, approach us if they need to. Each player should have a career action plan. So there is a dedicated plan developed in conjunction with a welfare manager on what he'd like to do. And there's a scale on that. So it can go from undecided or not engaged. Sorry, not engaged is the lowest end. So they're not doing anything about their future planning, to taking action and being fully engaged and on an educational pathway. And we use that as a gauge to identify which players might need more support. And that's where I come in a little bit sometimes. Once they are on once their career action plan is mature and they're taking steps, it's narrow and they know which direction they want to go in, they can access educational grants through us. We will pay for part of their education. The sport, provides a sum of money for players to help them get the qualifications they may need for their future careers. Because we recognise that most of these people came out of school straight into scholarships, academy, and professional teams, and then they've probably stopped learning the moment they left school. So we want to make sure they've got the qualifications, whether that's academic qualifications or vocational qualifications, whether you want to be an architect or an accountant or a builder or a plasterer. It doesn't matter, as long as that's the right pathway for you and it gets them excited. We offer emotional and psychological support through professionals. There's a range of networks that they can access, such as employers. We've got employers who are keen to talk to our players and give them taster days and work experience and have conversation with them about what it's like working in their sector. We've got past players who are happy to talk to current players about what it's like. We've also got a team of former players who are our mentors, and current players can access them for any advice, guidance or support they may need. The central team, which I'm going to come on later on, that's the team at Rugby League Cares, are all available to put current players while they're playing for anything they may need in terms of well-being or future career planning. And we're about to launch a new tool, which is a player portal, which is an online resource, an online website that provides tools, information, inspiration, educational content around what we've just discussed. That'll be going live shortly. I raised it this evening because it's publicly available to anybody. It's available to full-time professionals, to community players, and it covers all the different spectrum of topics that we cover in the wellbeing programme, from emotional health to transition to financial planning to spiritual beliefs. So it's shortly to launch. It will grow over time, but it will be a great self-service resource, because we know some players don't like to ask, some players are a bit shy to ask. So this resource is something they can do in their own time. They can go online and get the information that they may need without having to ask a player welfare manager directly. However, I would encourage them to speak to the welfare managers because they're fantastic. They will do all they can to help. In transition, this is my job. The transition programme is not a substitute to the welfare programme, the main programme that is run while they're professional players. There's a bit of a crossover period around 28 plus. I start getting involved in making sure that their career action plans are advanced, and if not, we'll help accelerate them. But it's not a substitute, it's complementary to the welfare programme. The welfare programme is the primary programme. Transition is my programme, is just to help them on that step off in the first few years after being a player. Year one, we have quite a detailed amount of work that we do to address some of the stuff we spoke about in the first section. I offer a career decompression session with players. We undertook some training with the English Institute of Sport last year, and this it was developed for post-tournament depression and post-tournament blues through the Olympics and major sporting tournaments. And we've developed that into a career decompression session to address post-career blues, which I spoke about earlier. All players are offered that. It's voluntary, it's opt-in, it's not mandatory. However, it is useful and it can help those players whose careers came to an end abruptly. It can help soften the blow. Still can access legal, financial and career advice. Still access educational grants. Still access to emotional and psychological support. I'll make a point on that now. I think I might mention it later on. Our athletes are really good at speaking to a strength and conditioning coach about getting stronger or fitter. They're really good at seeing a physio or a doctor to get help with a broken bone or a ligament or a torn muscle. They're really good at speaking to nutritionists or sports psychologists or coaches to improve areas of their life. However, they're not as forward-thinking or as forthcoming in accessing emotional and psychological support. It's there for them. There's no cost to them. It can be used in a positive way, just like training is positive to improve your lung capacity. You can also train using lots of different psychological techniques and conversations and talking therapy as a positive thing. It's not just about ill health, it's about promoting positive well-being. And it's the same again, lots of networks that can access to mentors, access to central team, and also the player portal is still there for them and will continue to update and evolve over time. Transition timeline year one. So this is what we do for retiring athletes in November. Usually they retire in November, not always because of injuries and other things. We encourage those players to celebrate, focus on the positive elements of their careers, celebrate it with friends and families and colleagues and teammates, and look back fondly. Remember the friendships you've made, the places you've been, the experiences that you've shared, because sometimes it doesn't end all the best. If you can nip that in the bud and look back positively and be grateful for all the great experiences they've had, it's a great starting point. In December, pre-season starts, and that's usually the first sign and the first point where players feel a bit low, they feel a bit lost, they feel a bit hollow, there's something missing in their life. They're used to being at pre-season and it's not there. Most players I talk to don't believe that because pre-season is not something they look forward to normally, but when they can't access it and they're not part of that, it feels strange, and that's the start of their post-careers blues. That month, I try and meet with them all face-to-face, have a transition meeting with them. It takes about 90 minutes. I go through loads of different things. Some of the stuff I spoke about today, I repeat it, but I remind them of some of the other benefits and services they can access. It's about visibility and information and me being available to them. In January, friendlies start going. Again, it's another marker, another point where they start feeling a bit, should I have retired? I wish I was with them. I miss them. At this point, they might have been kicked off the WhatsApp group, and that's quite symbolic. You know, it's quite an important element of being part of a team. The number one thing all players talk to me about when they retire is they miss being part of a team. It's the biggest hole in their lives, and they also, it's very rare that they ever replicate that feeling of being part of something special. That's when they can access a career decompression at any time. So these are not exact timelines. But the career decompression is available to them then, again, reduce the impact. Season kicks off in February. Again, another marker around this time, December, January, February. These are all reasons to start questioning their decision to retire and feeling lost and empty and there's something missing. We do an event called the Warriors Challenge, which I think I'm going to show you in a moment. This is to help replicate being part of a team. It's a temporary fix. It's a little bit of an antidote to that feeling of isolation and abandonment. We do a Warriors Challenge where we're prepared to go away and do a fundraising challenge for a weekend, get together all the retiring guys, we raise a bit of money for the player welfare program. It's like a little mini camp, but it's only one night. But we do 12 hours in Yorkshire three-peats of the year, raise some funds. But all the retiring guys get to talk to each other and they all get to experience what it's like for somebody else and what their transition experience is like. And they understand it's normal, what they're going through is normal. And we get some of the older boys in there as well to tell them that, this is how they got through it. And it's a really good experience. They all share different stories. And it's a nice pick-me-up for those guys who are struggling with that post-career blues. So we set up the group in March. The event's not till May, and we do a number of sessions, a couple online, and we do some trial walks and some trial exercises just to get them ready for it. This year we have the mid-season international in April. All retiring players get comp tickets to maintain links and still be part of the sport, and also introduce them to the player associations. In May we do the Warriors Challenge. Again, it varies where we do it, but again the benefits are loads of benefits. Reason to keep fit, reason to keep active, meeting up with former players, maintaining contact, having a goal to aim for, and sharing stories. In June, we have our celebration and gratitude event. This is our big event. We do it at the Magic Weekend. All players are invited as a VIP of the sport. The sport celebrates their careers and champions everything they've contributed to the league and says thank you to the players. And we encourage the players to invite a guest who they'd like to say thank you to. Most people on the call tonight, it's you, it's the partners. And I forcefully tell them it's your partner you need to invite, because they've sacrificed as much as you have. Sometimes they've sacrificed more than you have to help you become the player that you've been. So we encourage them to invite their partners and say thank you to them, and us as a sport say thank you to the partners as well. If it's not the partners, it's a parent, who drove them around from the age of 7 to 17 and got them to training and helped them become a player. It's a teacher or it's a coach. But again, it's nearly always a partner. Moving to July, I have a checkpoint. I try and meet up with them. Not always, some players don't always access this, but it is there for them. And I try and figure out what's going on. They might be, traveling really well at this point and hitting the straps and really excited about their new lives, but they might not be. And I try to check in and make sure I'm available and visible again. They'll get a Challenge Cup final invitation as a guest. There'll be 2 tickets for that. September, I like to try and check in as well. October, they'll get tickets to the grand final. In November, we run the rookie camp, the event we spoke about earlier, and we invite the transition players, and they're now 12 months retired, to come back and talk at rookie camp to help the younger players understand what's next, what it's like, what their 12 months has been like, what they wish they'd done differently, what went well for them, what advice they'd give a younger version of themselves. We did this back in February this year. It's going to be November this year. Really great event, and this is part of the process of transition for the older guys to give back, to share their knowledge, to share their experience, and it really powerful for both ends of the spectrum. Great for us rookies, but it's also a real key part of our transition program. And then we roll into year 2 and year 3. Less events, less contact, but I'm always still available, and they can still access all the services and provision that we spoke about. Ideally, at the end of year 3, they've managed to transition, they're happy and content, and they're flourishing in their new lives. It's not always the case, and there's no hard and fast cut-off date, but year 3 is usually where boys they're flying on their own, they're independent, and they're done. But that can be in 2 months. It doesn't need to be 3 years. Sometimes, though, it doesn't go as planned. I think we've all seen headlines and stories around former players in rugby league and other sports who have struggled. We do have a crisis and reactive element to this programme. Negative coping can come in if they're struggling with where they are because of not taking advantage of the programme earlier, and all the stuff we talked about at the beginning: alcohol, gambling, social and prescription drugs, gaming, overeating or undereating are addictions that we see, and it can be difficult and it can get out of control quite quickly. And if you throw in financial problems as well, you can see why a poor mental health might develop. We respond to that. Everything we do is confidential and non-judgmental. So when I say that, when it's confidential, I don't speak to anybody about whatever a player will be talking to me about. And my other colleagues and welfare managers are the same. They're independent from the coaching teams. They're there to focus on the person, not the player. I know Lottie and Laura will mention that shortly. And we're not judgmental. Whatever the challenges are, whatever they present, again, what can we do to help them? What do you need from us as the person to get to where you want to be? We don't tell them how to live their lives. We don't tell them what their end goal is. We work with them to determine what's good for them and what's best for them. So we respond, assess, provide support. That can be through internal partners or external agencies, depending on circumstance. We can also signpost to statutory services. In some situations, we're effectively a well-being charity, and sometimes whatever the presenting issue might be too big for us. So we work with that individual and get them the right support from the professional services such as the NHS. Probably a bit of a summary of what we spoke about there. The degree of athletic identity can be a risk factor for psychiatric distress. Many athletes tend not to seek support for mental health problems for reasons such as stigma, lack of understanding about mental health and its impact on performance, and the perception of help seeking as a sign of weakness. These amazing superhero athletes that we create with their resilience and toughness and self-sufficiency, because that's what we need from them, and that's what makes them great players, can also go against us in retirement when they might be struggling. It's difficult to ask because of the stigma around it. Things are getting better by people talking about this. It's improving. Every time a former athlete speaks up about their challenges, it helps somebody else do the same. So things are definitely improving from where we were 10 years ago. We still more needs to be done. There's still players in transition who I believe, are really struggling, but do not engage. They find it really difficult to put their hand up and ask. It's kind of one of the purposes of sharing with friends and family tonight. Don't have eyes everywhere. You guys are much closer. It might be that you notice something that you think they need some support with. You can let me know, or you can encourage them to speak to me. Right, I'm going to get a rest now. Who's relevant? So I'm going to just let Lottie and Laura take over shortly. Lottie and Laura will be on the sidelines, partners of Rugby League Cares. We've been working together for 3 years. We look after the person under the player, and Lottie and Laura look after the family and the partners that support the player. So we're two sides of the same coin. As much as I've gone on about the stuff we do for players, Lottie and Laura are now going to let you know about the stuff they do for partners and families.
Thanks, Francis. It might be me speaking more than Laura. You have to apologise. She's got a sick child at home tonight, but hopefully she'll be able to hop on at some point and give you guys a break from my voice. So just as a bit of context and background, I think it's probably worth taking on the journey of why we set up Be on the Sidelines in the first place. So myself and Laura met back at the start of 2020 now, just before the delightful era that was COVID hit us all. And Laura was introduced to myself through Nigel Johnson, who is the full-time welfare officer at the Rhinos. He also has his own counselling business, which is Swans CMC, which is at the bottom there. I actually need to get a picture of Nigel, not just a picture of a swan. And he introduced me to Laura. Laura and I instantly clicked, and you guys will know this. I think when you're a partner or a family member of a pro athlete, you instantly kind of have that common connection with somebody because you kind of just get it. Because I think a lot of the times people outside of the pro athlete world don't always necessarily get the experiences you go through on a day-to-day basis. So we instantly got on as people. And one day we were brainstorming ideas around links from a CSR point of view to do with my business, and Laura asked me what is close to your heart, and I said there's something for me in sport and mental health, but from the perspective of the families and partners. There's a lot more in terms of now prevalence from an athlete's perspective, but less in terms of that sort of holistic support in the home. And I've been very lucky to an extent during the time that I'd had with Brett at Rhinos that Nigel was focused on the player, but also the people beyond the sidelines and at home, and sort of giving them support to look after themselves, as well as the player during particularly challenging times, which Brett, particularly towards the end of career, suffered a lot with injury. So I was really lucky to have access to that support. And Laura, being from the golf world, and again, kind of an individual versus team sport, she was like, "Look, this just doesn't happen commonly in golf." And we got together with Nigel and we were like, there's something in this. I think it's something that happens. It's becoming more prevalent within rugby league, but across other sports. And we spoke to sort of partners of footballers, and they were like, what you've had at Rhinos isn't something that happens commonly. So we basically got our heads together. I think COVID then hit and gave kind of a lot of people, I think, time to be at home and think on things. And, we developed and came up with Be on the Sidelines as a concept. We spoke to Rugby League Cares. Obviously, you guys, like Francis said, we've worked with them from the start. They've been big advocates of ours. Values and the mission in terms of what we're wanting to do are very much aligned. And then we also linked in with Edge Hill University. So we were very mindful that what we didn't want this to be was a community of kind of partners and families of athletes. And we wanted it to be, we didn't just want it to be us saying it, we want it to be enriched in research and credible insight. And from looking around, there's minimum research out there worldwide in terms of kind of sports psychology. There's a lot from the perspective of athletes, but less in terms of from the perspective of partners and families who experience it from a different side of sport. So Edge Hill sort of jumped at the chance to get involved with. We've got the most amazing PhD student who supported us to develop the first lot of research that's ever been done in the world. So that's hopefully to be published this year. And I think that's going to provide a real catalyst to help us drive it forward. And we've spoken to various partners over the years. We launched in July 2021. So we kind of spent a year developing it and socialising it around. Launched in 2021 with a workshop with the Rhinos partners and families, and really just kind of growing it through there. there. The networks are very much kind of set at the moment within rugby league and golf. It is a free community available to anybody who is a partner or family member of a professional athlete. And Laura and I are kind of just continuing to grow it with support of our partner, our founding partners, and to spread the message out there and grow it organically. I think naturally the networks sit within rugby league and golf at the moment, because that's naturally where mine and Laura's networks are. But sort of speaking to people, we're starting to infiltrate into football now. So it's really, really exciting. We'll see where it takes us. But if you go on to the next slide, Francis, I'm not sure if Laura's there, so I'll just continue. In terms of what we are then and what we offer, so like I said, we're a unique and growing community of pro athlete families. It's totally free to join if you are a family or partner of a professional athlete. We are still new and growing. Like I said, Laura and I manage Beyond the Silence on top of our crazy day jobs and lives. So we sort of continue to drive it forward as and when we can. So anyone who joins us, you're coming on a journey with us as we sort of drive it for you guys that are part of our community. So in terms of what we offer, it's based under 3 pillars. So the first one being Never Alone. So this is basically helping pro athlete families look after their own mental health, lifestyle and well-being. So it might just be that some people just want to join the community because you are a partner or a family member of a pro athlete, and you want to just feel part of that community. Like I said, a lot of, I guess, what I find and what you guys I expect will find as well, like I said, when you are a partner or family member, you kind of get it. And I think it's just sometimes making those connections based on similar and shared experiences. So as part of this piece, we offer online resources to our growing expert committee. So a big piece of work we've done within the last 6 months is onboard experts within different fields. And these are sort of areas where we feel that we might want to pull on for support at particular times in a pro athlete careers journey. So we have a lifestyle coach in there, we've got a professional psychologist, we've got a PT, we've got a financial advisor, we've got a GP, and then also Sophie, who I mentioned, the research student at the top left there. So yeah, we are continuing to grow them and sort of continuing to grow our experts to provide the community with content and useful hints and tips and things that they might want to pull on. The second point as part of that is the podcast. So we've recorded our first 3 episodes. We are launching a Team Talk podcast, which is hosted by myself. Don't know how well that's going to go down, but yeah, myself and also a partner of a pro golfer as well. So really exciting, got loads of exciting guests coming up there, and I think it's going to be a really great way, like I said, to continue to spread that message organically. And then the third piece as part of this Never Alone pillar is business networking opportunities as well. We've got so many people in the community that have their own businesses, and it's really unique to kind of bring all of those people together from all different sports. It's a really, really unique community, and it's a real opportunity to kind of network amongst that community. So that's a really big focus for us that we really want to drive going forward this year. Next one, please, Francis. So the next pillar is someone to turn to. So this is where someone might join the community and they're just sort of, they're happy just kind of sharing experience and that kind of pulling on resources as and when. This second pillar is more around making sure people, I guess, have access to someone to chat to should they want to. So again, I don't know how you guys feel. I've found a lot of the time just speaking to somebody who's been through it can really help. So whether that be injury, whether it be part of a transitional journey, I think just pulling on somebody who's been through it and just gets it, and a lot of the time just having a bit of a vent can be something that is actually all you need to do. So we are about to launch, and we've started putting in place motion for our peer mentor program. So this is going to be called Over a Brew, and this will provide an informal and a confidential chat with somebody who has lived through the same experience and can offer a bit of advice. So it's really informal, but it just means that anybody in that community can access someone that might have shared that similar experience and have a chat. And then the second piece is part of this that we are wanting to develop and drive, and this is probably going to come more as we grow, but kind of giving that access to family counselling services. So we are working on a bit of a plan to partner with counsellors or more kind of family counselling services if people need something a little bit more formal, and having preferred partners that we work with. So yeah, and then the next slide, please, Francis. And finally, this piece is around powerful voices. So this is all around building a pro-athlete family-led movement that ensures support is there for anyone who needs it during and post pro-athlete career. And this is really enriched in that insight and research that I mentioned at the start. So we really want to create a bit of a wave in terms of influencing pro sport practices, services, and the public attitudes as well towards kind of the role of partners and families in sport through those shared experiences experiences and compelling research. So as I said, I think when that research is released this year, that's going to be a real catalyst to drive this piece forward. So yeah, and then next slide, please, Princess. So finally, how to join. If you guys don't already know, you can sign up on our website. Like I said, it is totally free to join. So please do sign up if you haven't already done so. And you can email us at hello@beyondthesidelines, and we're also on Instagram and Facebook as well. Our DMs are always open, and we're more than happy to chat to anybody who has any questions. So yeah, that's us.
Brilliant, thank you, Lottie.
No worries.
I'll rush through these. This is the central team at Rugby League Cares. There's 4 of us who work predominantly as on the welfare programme. Steve McCormack is the Director of Wellbeing and Welfare. 20 years as a professional coach. He's also a welfare manager for the England men, so he works with the team as well as supporting the welfare managers in their roles. And he's a former welfare manager for Wigan Warriors, so he's a tremendous amount of experience in rugby league, but also a tremendous amount of experience working with teams and individual players in terms of well-being. Steve Hardesty is a wellbeing and projects manager. He's a former welfare manager for England Women. He's also the former welfare manager for Huddersfield Giants. And again, another one who's committed and dedicated to improving our provision across all clubs in terms of making our welfare wellbeing programme best in class across all sports. Steve's driving standards hard and doing a great job, and also got experience himself working at the coalface, so he understands the challenges that the welfare managers face. And Dave Kirk, who's the in-house psychotherapist, he works for us full time. Again, another man with a track record of working in sport and helping athletes through talking therapy and counselling. He's a full member of the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapists. He's a former consultant with Sporting Chance, which is an addiction charity set up by Tony Adams, which I'm sure most of us have heard about. And he's had 5 years providing psychotherapy services to St Helens. So again, another man with a significant amount of experience who's a great central resource for Rugby League Cares and also the players that we serve. Right, so a bit more interesting now. I think we've got through all the information I wanted to share and raise some awareness and hopefully pose some questions that you're going to pose back to me. I'd like to introduce Lauren first. So Lauren, thanks for joining us this evening, and thanks very much for offering to be part of this next section. Lauren's going to share her story, her experience of life with a rugby league player. And Lauren, I'm going to pass it on to you straight away. The floor's yours. What was it like for you in terms of living with him while he was playing and also during transition?
Well, I was just going to talk really about the transition period, if that's all right.
Okay, that's fine.
I've not really thought before then. But when my husband retired, he retired in 2019. And when we were talking about things that, you need to plan for, we went to Australia for 4 weeks over Christmas. That was like looking forward to that next time. And then COVID hit. So his retirement sort of stalled in a way because he ended up being furloughed from his job as a sort of he wasn't employed as a coach at that point. He was employed to seek talent and sort out contracts and things for players. So he wasn't really involved in the day-to-day running of the team or anything like that. And then they put him on furlough, and he was on furlough for the most amount that you could be on furlough for, which he actually quite enjoyed, but it did sort of stop the process of retirement for him, I think, in a way. And maybe things didn't come to light until a good maybe year after, when he wasn't enjoying his job when he went back. He wasn't particularly enjoying it. It wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. And then other things started to obviously happen within that. But one of my biggest things I think for the retirement from my perspective was my own expectations about what our life would be like after he retired. And I often think back to the year that he was the last year of his playing career. And he was quite old by that point for a rugby player to still be playing. That sounds awful, but he was. And in the weekends, because of that, he wasn't necessarily injured, but he couldn't do a lot of things beyond rest. So for the year leading up to him retiring, I often used to say, I can't wait till we can do this, or I can't wait till we can go and do this. And I think the expectation of that sometimes when that doesn't happen because of lots of different reasons, and it could be they're busier now in their new job that they've got, or it just doesn't happen the way that you think it's going to happen, it can kind of build a little bit of resentment slightly towards it, because you've spent a long time, me particularly, because he's played since we've been together since we were like 17, and I think he retired when he was 36, so it's like 19 years of waiting for him to almost just be normal in a way, and then it doesn't always pan out the way you think it's going to pan out in a way. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I would always say: try not to have these expectations about what you think your life will look like after retirement, because it might not be exactly the way that you think it's going to go.
Thank you, Lauren. I think that's an interesting one. So you paint a picture of what life might look like, the fairy tale of, whatever that may be, but actually the reality is it's not quite, it doesn't pan out as you expected.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think that for my husband, one of his biggest things was the lack of competition in his life. And he is a very competitive person in every sort of way, not just in terms of sport, but because that's all he's ever done. And I know you were talking about previously about widening your sort of social scene and things like that, but his only joy beyond his family and rugby was other sport that he couldn't participate in because he wasn't allowed to. So he found that quite hard to, sort of, what else do you do if you don't really enjoy anything else but other sport? Because he could play golf, but it's quite an individualized sort of thing, but he couldn't really be involved in any other team sports. So he has actually since now started to play cricket socially, which has really, really helped him, I think, because it's still got that team element, and he's got that competition within his life. Because I think if you've got that competition always inside you, but you've got no release to it, that can then create problems as well, because who do you compete against? Probably your spouse in sort of other ways. And then that sometimes can build a bit of problems between you as your relationship.
Thank you. One final question, and it might not be the answer I thought it might be, but it is what it is, because Daddy's still involved in rugby league. What's it like for you? You're in transition in some respects. You're no longer part of a team, and you're no longer associated with Danny being a player. What was it like for you?
Yeah, I think I do sometimes think I found that a little bit hard, because when we were together, because that's how I met Lottie and Sarah, who's also on this call, and we are really, really good friends, and we did have a really close-knit group of friends. And then that's no longer there in a way. It's sort of, I'm not part of that little group anymore. So that's sometimes quite difficult, especially because I'd done it since I was like 17 all the way through, that I'd always had like another group of friends, and you get to meet another person, and you do still get to meet them as coaches' wives and things, but it's not the same. And I find it quite hard, like you might go to a social event and you can't stay as long as everybody else because you're no longer meant to be with the players as much. And so, yeah, that can be quite difficult, that you're not getting that sort of friendship within that as much. But I suppose that's why Lottie created what she did, because we did have such a close bond when we were all together at Leeds, that not everybody does. I know that not everybody did have that. And then that's supposed to help. And one thing I would say is as well, when they start a new job, half of them don't know how to use computers. And that was one of the biggest things, was trying to teach them how to use a computer for the first time ever in their life. So yeah, computers.
That's great information for us, because that's easily fixed. That is easily fixed. There's lots of ways to fix that. Lauren, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so candid and open about your particular experiences. I bring Lottie in now, because obviously Lottie's got a rugby league partner. Lottie, this is your opportunity to share your experience of transition.
How have we got, Francis? Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I think it's been a bit of a roller coaster, I guess. Life really, my experience of sport has been, and hence, why Lauren said, this is why we set Beyond the Sidelines up, because there was a lot of power in that community for me. And I think I did need a lot of support throughout the time with Brett because of injury, predominantly a lot. I mean, Brett, you know, he's significant. He's 65% disabled, classed as now, and he suffers still to this day with a lot of niggles and things with the injuries that he got. And I think, yeah, there was a big piece for me in that power of the community and the networks that I pulled on, which is why really we did want to launch something like this. And I think going back to what Lauren said as well, in terms of expectations when they do retire, I think probably the biggest piece of advice that I would say now, looking back, and as I said, I'm still very much riding the journey of it, is I think communication. I think, and I know it's a real kind of cliche thing to say, but I think it's having those conversations with your partner, like, you know, things like this spark those conversations with them. And I think sometimes you don't want to raise certain things because you feel like you don't want to bring it up because you know it's going to be a really tough time in their lives and their, you know, as they approach that time in their career. But I think the more open you can be about it, the more I think, you know, you guys are doing things like this. I think it's important to do that, to spark those conversations in the home, because I think the more you are prepared for it, even though you don't know what to expect, it's okay to just say, we don't know what to expect, but these are the things I'm feeling about things that might happen when you do, and what is the plan as a total unit to get there and get through it, and trying to put those foundations in place as early as you can, really, so you're the most prepared that you can possibly be. But I think everyone's journey is different, and I think that's another thing I've learned. I think, and there's more you can talk about it and share your experiences, really, it's hopefully going to help more people. So yeah, that's hopefully sort of answered your question.
No, this question for you, but actually probably should be Brett was answering it, but I'll try. Before he retired and before transition, did he think he had his stuff together and his act together and he was ready for transition, or do you think he knew it was going to be a challenge?
I knew it would be a challenge, and I think he toyed between, and I expect a lot of players go through this, he toyed between wanting to stay in the game versus wanting to be completely out of it, because I think at first it was a little bit like, if I'm not going to be a player, I don't want anything to do with rugby because I'm just going to want to play. But then I think going back to what you said before, Francis, around that team feeling, that camaraderie, that sort of, like Lauren said, the competitiveness, all of that kind of buzz that they get and what they've had throughout their whole careers, they realise that they're only going to get that probably from being in this sort of environment. So I think it took Brett a little bit of time to realise that coaching is actually what he wanted to do. And he did kind of go around a bit of a journey on it. And I know, and he would admit this, I think throughout the time, even when he was playing, I think he tried to be an electrician course, he tried to do another sort of course, and he tried to dip his toe into different sort of areas to you know, set himself up for what do you want to be and finding a new identity. And actually, it probably just took him a time to realise that this is what he wants to do and this is where he wants to be. And I think, like I say, different people will experience different things going throughout those transitional, you know, approaching those transitional years. But Brett thought he had another year left. And like you said before, he didn't choose to finish when he ended. He had a boot to the face, made him partially blind, metal plate in his face. And they were like, you need to stop now. And he would have kept on going until he had another limb hanging off probably. But, you know, he was forced to retire earlier than he thought. So I think that was a big thing in the mix for those, coupled with COVID that then hit, coupled with a very nasty accident as well. So we've had quite a lot of challenges over those transitional years that aren't just the transition alone. So so like I said, it's still a roller coaster ride.
Thanks, Lottie. A couple of points on that. One, he tried a number of things first. Electrician's course, some other courses, community foundation stuff, I think he did as well.
Yeah.
And what I would say, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, experiment. You know, go and find out what it is that you don't like, because actually that makes you get closer to what you do like. You know, so any athlete who is unsure about what, go and try something. Even if you find it's not for you, it's going to help you decide what to do next. And probably an observation for Lauren and Lottie, for the benefit of people who listen to this tape in the future. Brett and Danny are still out in transition. They're still attached to rugby league. It's a temporary state, and I wish them both the best. And I want them to have rugby league coaching careers until they're 75, if that's what they want. The reality is, it probably won't be the case. So there's still an element of transition to happen in their lives when they finally leave the sport and try to do something else. That, again, if they want to be coaches and the sport wants them to be coaches, continue down that road as well. Thank you both. Thank you very much. So nearly there now. Thank you very much for your patience. How you can help? So purpose of tonight, and the big purpose of what we're doing at the moment is raising awareness of all this great stuff that's going on, all these great people, these programs and support that's available to our athletes and our retiring athletes. And I'm doing a piece of work with the clubs to make sure that players know about all of this, because there's still an element that they don't know about. So definitely a lot of awareness. Friends and family, I think it's really important that you guys know as well, so that you understand what's available to your loved ones, and you can share this with other friends and family of athletes, so that they know, they're aware of this. This will be going online, so people can find it. Support your athletes in whatever they want to do and whatever direction they go in, but support them in a challenging way. If they want to become a joiner, but he's never been good with his hands, it might be having a sensible conversation with them. So listen, are you sure that's for you? Or if he wants to be a plasterer, but he's had 2 shoulder reconstructions, well, maybe plaster is not the right choice for you. So supportive but challenging in a positive way. Again, encouraging signpost. I think I've told you all the things that are going on this evening. So share with other friends and families, and also support the individuals that you're here for, whether it's your son or your partner. And make sure they know what's available to them, because sometimes they sit in meetings, and I'm certain some of them aren't listening. I try my best. I try to make it entertaining and engaging, but I'm certain there's sometimes where they miss out on some really important points about what they can access. So there, you're another set of eyes for me. And certainly in transition, access to professionals, access to people drops off quite quickly. Coaches, physios, doctors, strength and conditioning, colleagues. That network. It dwindles away, not by intent and not on purpose. It's just the nature of retirement and transition. And the people who are closest to these athletes are their friends and family. So you guys can help. You can either encourage them to speak to Rugby League Cares and get access to all the positive stuff that we do, or you can give me a heads up, say, listen, he's probably not where he needs to be. Can you come and have a chat with him? I'd love to. I'd be happy to. We will help anybody regardless of where they are. Questions. This is question time. Did we get any questions in the chat, Lottie? Did you notice any?
I didn't see any pop up, but I'm not very good with Zoom. So whether
it's okay. There are no chats, so that's okay. Does anybody have any questions? But any questions? By all means, turn your camera on, turn your microphone on, and ask a question. If you're thinking it's somebody else's, I'd love to be challenged, try and answer a question. I might not have the answer, but I'll try my best. This is a stage where it's 30 seconds of silence now.
Francis, is there any way that this can be promoted a bit more within the clubs itself? Because obviously I know the clubs tend to focus more on the player, and the players don't always come home and talk about what conversations they've had with the player welfare or this, that and the other. And I only came about it because I saw it on social media. But I know a lot of the clubs, like with players' wives who live overseas and that type of thing, they aren't aware of things that are available. So I just wondered if Lottie or anyone could reach out to the clubs and kind of do workshops or anything like that makes it more accessible to more people.
So I'll answer first, and I'll let Lottie come in. Siobhan, great comment, and that's absolutely the reason why we've done this evening. We know that friends and family don't know what we do and what the programme is and what all the great resources players can access. So that was we started the ball rolling this evening. This webinar will be publicised and promoted on our website and also the Rugby Football League website. We'll share it with the clubs, the professional clubs, and also the Championship and League One clubs. It's part of us growing. It's part of us trying to get better. We don't have all the answers currently. We're better than we were 5 years ago, but we know we're going to get better in the next 5 years. So you make a great point, and it's something we accept and we're trying to be better at. Lottie?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a really good point. I think you know, we have presented this to all of the clubs, like the welfare officers, and I think we can just keep championing it. I think, like Francis said, we just keep championing it with them. We did actually look to go round each club and try and get a
Yeah, I
physical.
don't even think I know who Joe's player welfare officer is. So if I had any concerns, I wouldn't even know who to go to. I have no idea.
Which club are you?
He's at Lee Leopards now.
Oh, well, I'll leave that one. Francis, would you
I don't
know?
know who it is.
Lee is Steve Madden. Okay, so
Right,
I'll share his details on the player portal once it goes live, which is the next week or so. There will be a section on there with all the player welfare officers' details on, so that you'll be able to see all the welfare officers for your club, and you'll be able to get in contact with them directly.
The other thing as well, Siobhan, it would be brilliant. So what we found works. So obviously, naturally, I guess it's kind of where my networks within clubs are. It's like almost spreading it ourselves. So like I've kind of said, anybody, like you said, you've sat on this, say, girls, I watch this, ping it, get the sign up, like anything we can do to like spread it amongst partners, or like drop it in the WhatsApp. We know it's like you're always
WhatsApp. Yeah, we've got a players partners WhatsApp.
you know what I mean? Like just drop it in there. Like anything we can do to like spread it. Like we said, we've created the community for us all. So I think it's like we've just said to naturally kind of just drive that word of mouth. You know, anything you can do to kind of spread that message. Then it's the partners, or coming from the partners' perspective as well as kind of trying to get in the clubs as well. But yeah.
No, Bill, thank you.
No worries.
Great question, Siobhan. Thank you. Does anybody else have any burning desires to ask any questions? I'd love you to. I'd love to try and answer them.
Can I just? Oh, sorry. It was just a quick one. I know you're recording it. I know someone with Warrington Wolves. She asked for it. I'm just wondering how are you sending it out? Because obviously, I'll go back to her WhatsApp and just sort of champion it and say it's worthwhile looking at it, but I don't know how it's going to be sent out.
Thanks, Natalie. It'll take me a couple of days to process. It'll go on YouTube, on the Rugby League Cares YouTube page. Once it's on there, I'll share it with all the welfare officers, and then I'll ask them to distribute to whoever. So one, you can tell them to look on the YouTube page in a few days' time, which I'll put the details on. It's Rugby League Cares website. You do a search, you'll find it. And then we'll also put it out through the welfare officers. Thank you.
Can I just ask about the portal?
You can ask.
Yeah. Is there like a login for it, or do you just go online and?
No, it's publicly available. The
right.
information that's on there, it's not a secret. It's not a magic wand. It's just lots and lots of articles of good advice, showcasing how former players might have managed their transition, or the jobs that they're doing now, or the qualifications that they did, or current players that are at university, or advice about managing stress and pressure. So there's lots and lots of advice on there. It's in its early stages. It's going, like I said, it's going live shortly. However, it will grow and evolve to support the welfare programs and become this online resource and a one-stop shop for anything that a player might need that's not related to playing.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. And
rlplayersportal.co.uk. There you go.
Yeah. I jotted it down from the slideshow, and then I just wanted to ask about the. I think it was for Lottie for the podcast.
Yes.
What's it called? Or
it's called Team Talk, so it hasn't launched quite yet. So we recorded the first 3 episodes. So we're hoping to get it launched over the next month or so. So we've already recorded 3 episodes with 3 different guests. But as well, if you girls know if anybody wants to come on, share their story or anything like that, we're giving it totally. It's basically to give a voice to the community, and it can be across any sport. If you know partners or family members in other sports, please just spread the word on it. So again, as soon as it's out, do you follow us on social? Are you remember?
No, I don't think so.
So if you sign, if you sign up,
WhatsApp group for us.
Yeah, if you sign up as well, then you'll get all the updates as soon as we go live.
Is that the Beyond the Sidelines one?
Yes.
Right. Okay, bro. I'll do that. Well, thank you.
No problem.
Cheers.
Thanks, Liv. Great questions, and thanks, Lottie. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close off because the game's kicked off, and we want to go watch the game, don't we? So, final comments is: players ultimately are responsible and accountable for their own planning and investment in their futures. Okay, so they drive the bus on this. The players lead, or the players should be leading whatever it is that needs to be done in order for them to play fair for their life after rugby. And if they do that, what they'll find is lots and lots of help and support to do that. We can encourage and support and motivate and inspire and pester if we need to, but ultimately, as long as they're driving it, they'll get a good outcome, and their transition and their retirement will go well. But again, the point is, it's down to the player. The player's got to do it. The player's got to take action. They've got to be invested in their future. Like anything, they invest heavily in their rugby career. If they invest as much, 10% of that kind of investment in their life after rugby, they'll do okay. But again, responsibility and accountability rest with the players, supported by everybody else that we talked about this evening. Right, that's us. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your contributions. I think it's gone really well. We'll get this out. I'll share it with Lottie and Laura as well. They can share it with their network beyond the sidelines, and feel free to share it to other people as well. You know, this information is not a secret. It's not. It's just common sense, most of it, and it's evidence that's been generated over the last 10 years. And the more people know about it who are supporting athletes, the better.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much.
Thank you all. You're all free to
Bye.
leave.
See you later.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.